does that feel?
Oh my God, this is pure elation. I'm just so proud of our guys, the way we fought. And people talk about scripting things. I never expected Walker Buehler to get the last out in a save situation in Game 5. So Game 6 or whatever the heck this game is, I'm just so proud of our guys. And we did it for the city of Los Angeles, and everyone wanted this matchup, and it lived up to the billing.
What was it like to manage that game with your pitching?
Yeah, we had to kind of piece some things together right there. Jack just wasn't sharp today, but everyone, like we've done all year, Buster, we pick each other up, man.
All right, tell me when you started to talk in the dugout about Walker Buehler.
So earlier, Walker sent me a text and said, I'll be available tonight, and I kind of patted him on the head. And then looking at that 7th inning and understanding what we were up against, he just said he'll be in the bullpen ready when called upon. So he showed out today, and there's just no bigger pitcher in baseball in the postseason right now than Walker Buehler.
How about Freddie Freeman in this World Series?
Yeah, that's our MVP. Freddie's gone through so much this year, on the field, off the field, and now he's a world champion, a 2-time world champion, and he's a 24 World Series MVP.
Doc, congratulations.
Thanks, Buster. Woo-hoo!
Back to you.
Joined now by Tim Kirkchin. And Tim, you're smiling, I'm smiling. We've gotten to do this a lot of years. And I'll just ask you at the start, before we get into the specifics, in broadest terms, what did we see tonight in this game between the Dodgers and the Yankees?
Well, we saw one of the greatest games of all time. It was also one of the worst games. It was one of the stupidest games I've ever seen. But this, Scott, is why baseball is the greatest game ever. This is why October baseball is unchallenged. I slapped my forehead at least 10 times tonight wondering, how can this happen? How can we be watching this? The final 3 outs. I haven't seen too many games like that in my entire life. And to have it in an elimination game, a game clincher for the World Series, again, this is why we love baseball so much. These games can't happen in other sports quite like they happen in baseball.
I agree, and the highs are to be celebrated, and then the moments of just what is that? I mean, Garrett Cole, you cover first base starting in February. This is a brilliant pitcher who pitched mostly brilliantly in this game, but a lot went wrong in that 5th inning, and one error compounds into another. As you look back at it as we speak now, Tim, how did that sequence of events unfold as it did in your estimation?
Scott, there's no way around this. That's one of the worst innings ever played by a team in the World Series. Aaron Judge cannot cover first base on that play. 5 unearned runs were scored in the 5th inning of a game, and as you already established, the Dodgers are the first team in history to clinch a World Series being down by 5 runs, and they did it because the Yankees allowed them to do it. And let's not forget the catcher's interference in the 8th inning, a 3rd error in this game, helped lead to the 2 runs that the Dodgers scored. Look, the Dodgers deserve so much credit for this, but the Yankees are going to kick themselves that they let this game get away.
How will history frame what Freddie Freeman did in this World Series?
Well, this is obviously one of the greatest World Series performances ever, if not the greatest World Series. Let's not forget the postseason. I mean, the World Series started with him having no extra base hits in the first 8 games because that ankle was crushing him. He couldn't run, he couldn't move sideways, and he had trouble swinging the bat. And he recovered in time. He hit in Game 1 the greatest grand slam in the history of the sport, the only grand slam, walk-off grand slam in the history of the World Series, and that grand slam changed this entire series. It was maybe the greatest performance in a World Series ever by one player. That's what Freddie Freeman did.
And when leading into the series, Tim, there's never been a World Series that had 5 MVPs in it. And frankly, he was the one we probably thought of last for the reasons that you just described, because others were playing much better. And then Freeman, as you said correctly, that first game changes the entire direction of the series with the grand slam. But it ends with Doc Roberts rolling the dice to a degree and then his guys validating the faith that he showed in them. When you look back on this over the winter and try to piece together after the 5th inning with what they went to, who they put on the mound, how do you think you'll remember the way the Dodgers closed out their victory?
Well, it's impossible to think of the Dodgers as this gritty little bunch of gamers.
Because they're not.
Scott, that's exactly who they are in this series.
Yeah.
And this season, they lost virtually their entire starting rotation, in part because he was injured, but the rest of that team carried it together. Mookie Betts he drove in 15 runs in the postseason, most by a Dodger ever in one postseason. But you look at that Dodger bullpen, Blake Trinan with that frisbee slider and that hard sinker and all the huge outs they got. Look at what that bullpen did after Jack Flaherty got crushed early. Just a stunning development, and what an amazing team the Dodgers were when things were looking really bad at certain points. They always found a way to win.
All right, sit tight. I have one more for you. But first, the guy who texted his manager to say, "I'll be ready for you if you need me, Doc," Walker Buehler with Buster Olney.
2 days after you win a game in the World Series, Walker Buehler, you get a save to close it out. How did that feel?
Man, that's the stuff you always wonder if you're tough enough to do, and I still don't really think I am, but it worked.
Ninth inning like?
That was awesome. That was as cool a baseball experience as I'll ever have, probably, and it's everything, man. Since I've been here, we played a lot of really good baseball, and haven't gotten it done. 2020, everybody talks. Can't really say much about it now.
What'd you see in Freddie Freeman during this World Series?
Yeah, just on fire. Obviously, getting him healthy, getting those couple of days off, and then you see who he really is, and it's special.
Walker, thanks. Back to you.
I jotted a couple things down there, Tim. It's the stuff you wonder if you're tough enough to do, and maybe he lied about how good he felt. I don't care what sport it is, but to see players that are willing to basically lie to their manager about what they think they can do and then find out, I'll be damned, I actually could do it. How can you not love the game, right? I know that you feel that way. I do want to pivot to the Yankees, just an organization that beyond all others does not play for second. They don't play for, hey, we did this and that's pretty good. And yet they do make the World Series and they battle and ultimately come up short. This year, you'll remember what the Yankees did and ultimately didn't do?
Well, I'll first remember that the Yankees went to the World Series, and that guy, Aaron Judge, was the biggest reason why, and that guy, Juan Soto, is a free agent at the end of the season. But there's no way around this. If they had won this game tonight, the momentum that they had built may have led them to coming back from a 3-0 deficit to win the World Series, and they just made too many mistakes in the 5th inning of that game and then in the 8th inning of the game to lose it. Unfortunately, a really good season by the Yankees is going to be marred by the mistakes that they made in the most important game of the season. And they made some base running mistakes in this postseason that just made you shake your head. But in a lot of ways, this was a great year for the Yankees that finished in a very, very sad way for them.
Soto a Yankee next year?
We're going to ask that question about 1,000 times. Let's just say tonight's loss didn't help them to try to keep him. And yet when they look at it and say, we can't win without him next year, he's a big reason that we won. The Soto story will go on and on this offseason, and I'll say the Yankees have a chance, but so do several other teams, including that other one in New York.
Eduardo Perez joins me now, and Eduardo, I've scribbled a bunch of notes. My guy Stanford Steve is just laughing when we do our podcast. Hell, half the time I can't even read the stuff that I've written down. I'll just start with you. Having watched what we just saw and the way that 5th inning goes and how everything changes, you're shaking your head. I still can't figure out how it all happened. What did you see?
Look, the first thing that I know is that Garrett Cole was dominant. He had everything working, and what let him down was his defense. It was Aaron Judge dropping a routine fly ball in center field with Kike Hernandez at first base. It was the Aaron throw. Get out and strike out the next 2 hitters, and you're thinking he's going to get out of this, and he did not. And he did it because Freddie Freeman Before that, it was Mookie Betts, ground ball to first. You're thinking right here, inning over, you get out of it with no runs? No, he doesn't cover first. Just so many physical disaster of an inning, 38 pitches for Garrett Cole, and he was still able to throw an inning and 2/3 extra to get out of it. But man, I'm telling you right now, this one's going to hurt for a long time for the New York Yankees.
Eduardo, having said all of that, the Yankees still come back to take another lead. And then if you look at the at-bats in that 8th inning and the way that Dodger team battled, they got to the heart of their order. And look, the game these days, I can't tell you how many times in this postseason we saw it. You get yourselves in position where you're high leverage moments. You got people in scoring position. You got to put the ball in play. They got not one but 2 sack flies. I mean, that 8th inning, I thought the Dodgers showed their mettle, did they not?
They did. Look, Tommy Kahnle threw a lot of changeups this postseason, and the Dodgers hedged their bet on the changeup. It was Kike Hernandez getting a base hit, again starting the rally like he did in the 5th inning, started again in the 8th inning. The broken bat, base hit, infield single, and that was off a changeup as well. And they just put the ball in play. They made it happen, and when Mookie Betts hit that sac fly, you see him pumping his fists. You're going, look, this team knows and understands how to finish games. And it was their leaders. It was a full effort from 1 through 9 with the edge that they had that they ended up winning this World Series. But, I mean, there's so many storylines, and I would love to keep that little scribble that you have there because I want to know what you wrote next.
We see this in sports all the time, right? I think about the Stanley Cup playoffs. Guys play through God knows what just to be available for the guy next to him. And what Buehler does, he doesn't save games. He doesn't pitch in relief. He won a game 2 days ago. When history remembers what he gave this team in that 9th inning, what will you say about that?
I'll say gutsy. I mean, he texted his manager and said,
Dodgers managed to survive. I think the thing that happens when a championship is won, a title is won, particularly in a sport that has long series, is you can forget the moments along the way. And I think this Dodger team showed resilience time and time again. Yeah, I know they got $1 zillion payroll, but they managed to take punches and get up off the canvas. That impressed me, and I think they showed that again tonight. Is it fair to say that this team who, yes, they got a plenty of dough and they got an expensive payroll, but they still showed some grit and some moxie, not just tonight, but along the way?
And look at all the injuries that they've had to go through this entire season. They didn't know how they were going to paste it together this postseason in the DS or in this World Championship is putting them right there and close to being in the Hall of Fame. That's how good this guy did manage this season and in this postseason.
Freddie Freeman wins the MVP, and we showed the highlight. I'm not sure when you put the headset on, but we were documenting the moments along the way in this World Series. Tim Kirkson, as only Tim could do, gave us the context on that Game 1 Grand Slam. But Eduardo, in your estimation, did one swing, one at-bat, one moment change the entire trajectory of this World Series?
Yes. The moment that Luke Weaver did not step foot in the 9th, 3 outs, you're going to take him out? No, you're not. And I think right then and there, when Jake Cousins had to go out there, I think that was one of the biggest mistakes of this World Series, and it really turned it around for the Dodgers. They get a W there, and then from then on, the Yankees had their backs against the wall.